about acknowledging the sexuality of our kids from young ages instead of that pretend, wait until they're older, and then it's always too little too late.
Right.
And if, parents are sending kids off to college without that earnest, heart-to-heart, honest discussion, I hate to be so cold, but they're failing in their preparation
miserably
of the most important aspects of their kids' college life. I mean, how easily can college be derailed by an STD infection or a sexual assault
or an unintended pregnancy?
Right?
Or just a breakup, just being dumb, not even having to deal with the emotional aspects of it.
So let's bring in Lori.
Yes.
Our dear friend, and as I said on Facebook, our favorite, most frequent guest and returning champion.
That's right.
To steal from Bill Maher.
Exactly.
Lori Shapiro should be on the line. Are you with us, Lori?
I am.
There
Hey,
you are.
Lori, how are you?
Love.
Hi.
And there you are.
Hey there.
And all
so
your
nice to see
gorgeousness
you again.
and gorgeosity.
Thank you. Thank you. How's the hair?
God, you're
Good.
beautiful.
I wonder if we can maybe get the volume turned up a little bit in the studio.
We are so happy to have you join our
very happy to be here.
on
Thank
our
you.
already in progress conversation from last week.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I listened last week, and I loved the conversation, and especially having
thanks.
4 teenagers of my own.
I know.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you that. You're not too far
This is
away.
Huge. No, this is huge. What do you mean not too far away? This is huge. I mean, Carly's a senior this year.
Oh,
and not only, I know, right? Isn't that crazy? Not only do
Didn't she
I
just have her
talk to
bat mitzvah?
but no, that was Jamie in March. But yes, she did just have her bat mitzvah. It seems like 5 minutes ago. Yeah. But not only do I talk to Carly, but I literally talk to all the friends, because all the friends are like, even my 13-year-old, Jamie, my littlest, she's like, her friends talk to me because parents feel icky and uncomfortable. And I love to tell this story, which my son hates this story. I have my 15-year-old son, Jason, who is abnormally tall. He's 6'2", and when he was in the 5th grade, he was about 5'10", so he was bigger than all the teachers. And they were doing your standard sex education. They were doing reproduction, how not to get pregnant, abstinence, and HIV, all the standards. So he came home from school one day, because you have to sign now. I don't know about when you guys were teaching, but now you have to actually sign consent for your child to even receive sex ed. And what will happen is, if
in
the
some
parents
places
don't consent, there are parents who opt out, and those kids spend that time in the library, not getting anything.
That's criminal.
So,
and some places make it even worse, where they have to opt in.
Right.
So everybody's opted out unless the parents opt their kids in for sex ed.
Right, exactly.
That's a travesty.
So my son had a male teacher at the time, and he came home from school, and I said to him, so how did it go today? And my kid, obviously, me being a sex educator, knew more than he probably should, of course. And he said, it was really quite boring. They talked about reproduction. They talked about pregnancy. They talked about, sexually transmitted diseases and birth control. And I looked at my son and I said, well, what did they talk about with respect to sexual pleasure for males and females? Did they talk about female sexual pleasure when they discussed the female body? Did they mention the clitoris? Did they mention orgasm? And my son looked at me earnestly and was like, oh, my God, they did not. And I said, well, you go in tomorrow and you privately say to your teacher that you feel that they should be looking at the curriculum from a different perspective. So, of course, my son goes in the next day, takes the teacher aside and says, and these are direct quotes from the teacher, he said, I was really, dissatisfied with yesterday's talk. And the teacher's like, really, Jason, why? And he's like, well, you said nothing about the clitoris, nothing about female sexual pleasure, and you focused solely on abstinence and birth control and sexually transmitted diseases. And apparently the teacher's response was, you know how much I hate your mother? And they all laughed.
That's so awesome.
This has been legendary at the elementary school for years now about,
Oh, yes.
But it's so unfortunate that children are, even going to college, are lacking the understanding about where sex and pleasure combine.
Right.
And thank you for saying sex and pleasure. We were talking about that last week.
Yes.
Sex ed devoid of pleasure is just a waste of time.
Exactly, because they don't, there's sexual pleasure without intercourse, without ejaculation, without orgasm. There's so much fun. I think about being, in my 20s, some of the hottest, sexiest times I ever had was like fully clothed, making out in the back of a car.
Yeah, I mean, remember that,
having,
the stairwells, the back seat,
Yes,
the copping a
yes.
feel, even if it was just a shoulder, there was something thrilling about that.
Oh, you guys,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to put a sepia tone filter on this.
No, but the truth is, why aren't we educating our young people who are going off to college? I tell my daughter and her friends things like, if you're out and you're at parties and you're drinking and you're partying and you and all your friends are all a tingle, like, you can't expect your friends to protect you. You need to have your self-esteem, have your wits about you, and be sure what you want and what you don't. And I've said the same to my son. I've said to him, you're allowed to say no. If there's a girl who wants to be with you or wants to fool around with you and you don't like her, it doesn't make you, weird to say, no, thank you.
Nice.
No, thank you.
Right.
And I think that's, we're missing all of that.
Right, absolutely. And, there's, I think, two things that often do get lost, and I do see this as consequences of completely leaving out pleasure and non-penetrative types of sex play from the equation, is that I think by that automatically reinforces sort of the opportunistic nature that so many males have, and almost makes it impossible for a guy to be able to say no, not into it, because there's that ongoing assumption that men are always supposed to be ready, men are always supposed to be into it, and that if this is an opportunity, men cannot pass that up.
This really surprised me. Lori, tell me what you think of
there
this. Larry found a study. What was this from? Campus Life. Right? A sex
this
and
is
love
a
survey.
2018 survey.
This shocked me. According to this study, 60% of college of females reported being sexually active, 40% not, but it was more like 50-50 for the guys.
Absolutely.
That's totally shocking to me. It's supposed to be the other way around, right? Where guys
It's
say they're
supposed to be.
sexually active when they're not, and women say they're not when they are.
I think it's not shocking to me at all anymore, because what we're leaving out is the freedom now for females to not only have, male-female sexual experiences, but now they're having female-female sexual
There you
experiences.
go.
So that opens up an entire group, an entire population of opportunity for female exploration, where men are still not allowed to be heteroflexible. Men are not allowed to experiment as freely with their sexuality as females are. So I think females are like, yeah, we were making out and rubbing up against each other, and I was doing that with another girl, and that's so much more acceptable. So I absolutely think that the women's opportunity to experiment with their sexuality in college is much higher.
Yes.
Much higher.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're coming to the
I think
end
that's phenomenal.
of the times that behavior was more for guys' entertainment.
The Girls
Right.
Gone Wild type of...
Right. Now it's really
I
girls
lived in
exploring their
Fort Lauderdale
sexuality.
during
Right.
those
Well,
years.
now they're in it
Sorry?
for
I
themselves.
lived
Say
in
that
Fort
again,
Lauderdale
Lori?
during those years. I lived in Fort Lauderdale. Literally, I was in high school and college during the Girls Gone Wild years. One day, I expect to find a video somewhere from the candy store. I've been looking, and it hasn't shown up yet. So, well, probably when I run for president, then it'll show up.
Of course.
Do you want to buy one?
One of me, absolutely, yeah. I think that if we, and also a lot of men now, because of the Me Too movement and their discomfort with, what am I allowed to do? Again, I remember in the olden days, you'd be in a club with a guy, you'd be hanging out, he'd buy you a drink, you'd be on the dance floor, he'd push you up against the wall and start making out with you, and you didn't even know him. Not me, of course. I was certainly not that girl. But the fact that those things occurred and were okay, I have young men in my practice all the time say to me very specifically, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do. Like, I buy her a drink. Do I get her Snapchat? Do I get her TikTok? Like, do I touch her? Do I not touch her? And I think that's why, that particular study is representative of what's going on for young men, because they don't want to screw up their whole life by making the wrong choice. Or they know any girl at any time could say, he did something that made me uncomfortable. So now they're like, I'm waiting for the girl to be more aggressive.
Yeah, but are we really at a point? And is it legitimate for these guys to be concerned and confused about whether or not they can say hi to somebody, or whether or not, I mean, is that real? And are we at that point, and what does that say about what kind of foundation men have been on all along?
Right, which I think is so unfair, because women are getting about birth control and lubricants and that they can have orgasms and use vibrators, and women are getting all this empowerment, and men are continually getting now repressed. We forgot how to let men be men. A man can be a man. A man can be forceful and dominant and all that, but that requires communication. Right. And I think if men are learning how to communicate properly with females, then they're going to get the feedback they need. If you say to a female, God, I'd love to kiss you and touch you, and she's like, heck yeah, then you go. That doesn't delineate their ability to be alpha. I want my partner, who is, by the way, shout out, my partner is a dom, as far as that's concerned. Like, he has no problem, kissing me or touching me or you know what I mean? But that's all about communication.
Well,
if you were to kiss me and I was tired, I was cranky, and I was like, yeah, not now, I'm tired, he'd be like, okay. But we need to teach the young men to communicate.
Right. And I think what you're also talking about, and we've talked about this before, how the straight or vanilla community can learn a lot about sexual negotiation and communication from people that are in the kink community, because as and what you're just describing, a lot of people don't realize that in these sort of dominant submissive, these power exchange kind of dynamics, it's really the one who's the submissive that has the control,
consent.
And they're the ones that have the
100%.
power.
Yeah.
But even more importantly, in vanilla relationships, what we don't teach people, it's not black and white. It's not a constant.
Right.
You can trade up. Some
Absolutely.
days you be dominant, some days you be... It's not like it has to just be one way. And I really try to impress on people, if it's not your wheelhouse, go with it, play with it, see how it feels. And the thing I tell clients more than anything is learn how it's okay to laugh during sex.
Yes. Have
sometimes
fun.
things are just weird and ridiculous, and you're like, what the hell are we doing?
Right.
And that's an okay thing. People think it has to be so serious because we watch too much porn and too much television and too many, reality TV shows where it seems so pat, and that's not real. So if we allow for some of the ridiculousness
that's
that happens,
right.
I think it opens up a whole new space for people sexually.
Right.
And that's really where that communication factor is so strong, because you can be uncomfortable because you're unfamiliar doing something. You've never done it before. But if you have that communication, if you have that sense of connection, which also kind of means, trust, which is another one of those
That's
words that we,
huge
throw out in
facet.
so many different ways, that you can be comfortable in your discomfort, and you can still be safe exploring things that are unknown. So I think...
It's so funny. Mark and I had a half-an-hour conversation about this weekend. I'm like, you should get out of movies and television and go back to school and become a therapist. And, because he would be a great sex therapist. We had this, hour-long conversation about that exact point, about the trust. And when the trust is there, nothing is wrong. Everything is right. Regardless.
Right.
Rapid ejaculation, or if a woman does an orgasm during sex, or if you get too tired or you lose your erection. Like, if a man or a boy is losing their erection, take a break, have a glass of water, have a conversation, have a snack, and then go back to it. And none of these conversations are happening, so there's all this, icky, weird discomfort, which is so unfortunate. I hear couples all the time talk about how if something comes up that kind of kills the mood, that's it. I'm like, all right, so the mood is killed for the moment. Go to the kitchen, get a glass of water, get a snack.
Reset.
Talk for a while.
Oh, God,
Reset. Perfect. Yes.
One of my favorite Marty Kleinisms. He talks about, imagine someone being so sensitive to distraction that during a meal, somebody gets up and says, you know what, I'm going to go grab salt and pepper. And 2 seconds, they get up and go to away from the table, grab salt and pepper, and they come back, and there's their partner sitting there. You've ruined this meal for me. I don't even want to eat anymore. Like, really?
Right.
You're that sensitive, that intolerant.
Right.
But sexually, that's all it takes.
But you also got to
slightest-
remember, when that happens, there's almost no communication.
Right.
Because I think part of
Right.
that seriousness, part of that, oh, this is a really
Even
sort of
when
is
people
people
are-
are so in their own selves, and
Right.
they're in their own heads.
Even when people are being playful beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
when it turns to
Right.
sex,
Right.
it's got to get
Right.
serious. And
Well-
you can't
Well,
laugh
it's
at
gonna-
funny
and I think it's
noises,
even
and
more-
you can't be
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
be childlike.
So, listen, we
Well, I
got.
think the
I
real
think we have
seriousness
about
comes in is the-
one more
is-
minute left.
Oh, no way.
All right,
Well,
we
what I
did
was
get
gonna
our
say,
2-minute
Larry,
warning.
You speeding up the clock?
But what I was going to say is, though, is not just what happens is when it really turns to the serious piece where things get uncomfortable is the intercourse piece.
Right.
Where they can continue, like foreplay and play and kissing and touching is fine. When you get to the intercourse piece is where people lose their levity. And I think
Absolutely.
if we can teach people to maintain levity during intercourse, they'll do so much better.
Absolutely, because the other stuff doesn't require performance.
None of
There's
it
no
should be about
judging, no value. Of
performance.
course, but that's I
Right.
think Lori's making a great point that that's where people draw that line. You can have fun, you can be light, you can be all kinds of whatever. But when it comes to intercourse, boom.
Always
Get
gets
serious.
good when the music starts.
Right. Just when we want
But
to
you
get
know
serious.
what the music means. We have to stop for this week. Lori
Yes, indeed.
Shapiro,
I'm always
brilliant
available.
sex
You know I
therapist
Love you so much.
guys.
in Bethesda,
Yeah.
Maryland. We love you
Yeah.
so much. Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
And
Thank you all
gentlemen.
for listening and
thanks
watching.
for joining us. Please share and like on Facebook. We'll be here next Monday and every Monday at 9 o'clock for a Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers.
Thank you. Have a great night and a great week.
You've been listening to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us every Monday night at 9 p.m. on WNN, 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. Or watch live streaming video at AMP2 TV Productions on Facebook, or look for the shows on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again next week. The opinions